Hello, and welcome to this lesson, lesson 1.5. I'll be talking in this video about the distributive property and also putting this together with what we learned in the last video about combining like terms. Please remember to fill in your note sheet for this lesson. So, the main idea for the distributive property is if we have an expression like this, A times the quantity B plus C, what that tells us, the fact that this A is touching those parentheses, is that A is being multiplied by both B and C. So A times B gives you AB, plus A times C would give you AC. So we can simplify this expression, remove the parentheses, by distributing the A and multiplying it by everything inside the parentheses. It's very important that we remember that it's multiplication. So let's take a look at example 1. 7 is going to be multiplied by x and 4. So we will get here 7x, that's 7 times x, plus 7 times 4, that's 28. All right, let's take a look at number 2. We notice we have a negative 4 being multiplied by a y and by a 3, so we have to be careful with the signs here. Negative 4 times y is negative 4y. Negative 4 times positive 3 is negative 12. And we stop there because, again, we can't combine like terms because we have a variable expression and a constant, which cannot be combined. So let's look at number 3, being extra careful with the negatives here. We have a negative 4 times negative w. And that w, when we look at this, we could pretend that that is a 1w, so I'll put a little 1 in there, negative 1w. So what I've got is I'm multiplying these coefficients. Negative 4 times negative 1 would be positive 4, so that would be positive 4w. And then I need negative 4 times negative 10. That would be positive 40, so I'm going to say plus 40. All right, so let's take a look at number 4. Again, there's a negative here. Outside of the parentheses, I'm going to treat this as if it were a negative 1. Okay, I'm going to pretend that there's a 1 in there right after that negative, so I know I'm multiplying it negative 1 by by y and by negative 9. So negative 1 times y would be negative y. And negative 1 times negative 9 would be positive 9. All right? So the key with the distributive property is to take whatever is on the outside of the parentheses, A in this case, and multiply it by everything inside the parentheses. So we get A times B and A times C. So let's do some more examples. So looking at number 5, we want to distribute the negative 3 across the 2x and the negative 4. So negative 3 times 2 is negative 6. That'll be negative 6x. Negative 3 times negative 4 is positive 12. Done. Let's look at 6. We have x times the quantity y plus 4. So we do x times y plus x times 4. X times y is xy. X times 4 is 4x. So in general, I'm putting the number first and then the variable, okay? And when I have 2 letters, I'll go in alphabetical order, x and then y, okay? So that is it, xy plus 4x, no more combining possible. Let's look at number 7. We have a 2 being multiplied by the entire quantity, x minus y plus 8. So we've got 2 times x, 2 times negative y, and 2 times 8. It's really important that we remember that this negative sign goes with the y. So 2 times x is 2x. 2 times negative y is negative 2y, because this is like, again, like a negative 1y, all right? So we'll do 2 times negative 1 and get negative 2y here. And then we multiply 2 times positive 8, and we'll get plus 16. And that's the fully distributed expression. Let's take a look at 8. Again, These parentheses, just because they have 3 terms in it, are no different from the other problems. It's just we have to make sure that whatever is on the outside of the parentheses is multiplied by everything inside the parentheses. So we have an x in number 8. It needs to be multiplied by 2y. It also needs to be multiplied by negative 5z. And it needs to be multiplied by positive 1. So what we're going to get here when we multiply x times 2y is 2xy. All right, I put the coefficient first, and then I put the variables in alphabetical order, x then y. Then I need an x times a negative 5z would be negative 5xz. Okay, and then an x times positive 1 would just be plus 1x, or we could just say plus x. That's it. And we stop because we cannot combine the xy term and the xz term because they're not like terms. They're not exactly the same variables. All right, number 9, don't be intimidated by fractions. Feel free to use your fraction calculator or do this in your head. It's fine either way. We need to multiply 1/6 times 3/5 x, and we also need to multiply 1/6 times 18. So I'm going to do a little side note over here. 1/6 times 3/5. I'm multiplying those two together. I can cross cancel here and say that's 1 over 2. So when I multiply top times top and bottom times bottom, I'll end up with 1 over 10. So what I have here in number 9, when I multiply 1/6 times 3/5 is 1/10 x. Okay? Now I'm going to do the other multiplication, 1/6 times 18. And if I say 1/6 times 18, that's like 18 over 1. I can definitely cross cancel this as well. That's just going to end up being 3. 1 times 3 over 1 times 1 is just 3 over 1, or 3. So this will be 1/10 x plus 3. Okay, so don't be alarmed by fractions. They're not so bad. What I'd like to show you now is how we can combine what we did in the last lesson with what we just reviewed with the distributive property. Putting it all together, we're going to use the distributive property to distribute around what is outside of parentheses across whatever is in the parentheses, and then we're going to combine like terms, which is what we did in the last video. So we'll look for the same exact variable expressions or constants and combine those that can be combined. So let's take a look at number 1. I'm going to start by multiplying across my parentheses. I'm going to do distributive property first. So I'm going to say 8 times 2x, that's 16x. And then I'm going to say 8 times negative 3, which is negative 24, minus 6x. Notice that I did not multiply the 8 times the 6x because the 6x is not in the parentheses. That 8 is not multiplying the 6x. So we stop there, and now we can combine like terms. So let's look. We have 16x minus 6x. So that's going to give us 10x minus 24. And that's our final answer for that one. Okay, let's take a look at the next one. I see I have a 10 minus the quantity y minus 6 minus y. Okay, that's a mouthful. But when I look at what I have in the parentheses, I see a minus out here. And I'm going to put a 1 in here because that's what I'm really distributing, a negative 1. Okay, so maybe, yeah, negative 1. So I'm going to do first bring down the 10 because I'm not doing anything with that. And now I'm going to distribute to get rid of my parentheses. Negative 1 times y is minus y. Negative 1 times negative 6 is plus 6. And then minus y comes on at the end. Again, that minus y at the end is not being multiplied by the negative 1. Only the things in the parentheses, the y minus 6, are being multiplied. Now I'll use my combining like terms. I've got a negative y and another negative y. Remember that the coefficient that is implied there is 1. So this is like a negative 1y and a negative 1y. So I can combine those coefficients to give me negative 2y. Negative 1 plus negative 1 is negative 2. So negative 2y. And I have a 10 plus 6 will be plus 16. Okay? Let's keep going. Let's do some distributive property on number 3. I have 9 times 2k, that's 18k. I have 9 times negative 4, which is minus 36. Okay? I've handled the first set of parentheses. Now I'm going to move on to the second. I have negative 2 times 7k. That would be minus 14k. I'm multiplying there, negative 2 times 7. And then I'm going to say negative 2 times negative 12. That would be a positive 24. Okay? Now that I've distributed, I'm going to combine like terms. So I've got an 18k, a minus 14k, a negative 36, and a 24. Notice that the two terms involving k can be combined. So 18 minus 14 is 4, so I'll have 4k. And I can combine the two constant terms. That's what we call the plain old numbers. So negative 36 plus 24 would be minus 12. And that's our final answer there. All right, now we have some fractions on number 4. Again, don't be alarmed. We can do this. So we're going to do, and again, feel free to use your fraction calculator if you have one at home, but I'm going to do these by hand. So first we're going to multiply 9/4 times 10/3. So I'll do this over here. 9/4 times 10/3. I'll cross cancel. And I'll cross cancel again. I'm looking for common factors that I can divide out of both terms. And then I'll multiply top times top and bottom times bottom. 2 times 1 is 2. So what I have here for number 4, multiplying 9/4 times 10/3 is 15 halves x. Okay? Minus, and now I need to multiply 9/4 times 4. Well, I know that one in my head, but I'll show you anyway. 9/4 times 4 is like 4 over 1. And when I cross cancel here, you'll see that the 4's cancel out. 1 4 on the top, 1 4 on the bottom. 9 over 1 is 9. So what I have here is 9. I have 15 halves x minus 9. Now we have to distribute across the other parentheses. Negative 1/4 times 2x. I'll extend this. Negative 1/4 times 2. Okay? So that's like a 2 over 1. I can cross cancel here. And I'll end up with negative 1/2. All right, so what I see here is minus 1/2 x. And then I want to do negative 1/4 times negative 8. Negative 1/4 times negative 8. That's like 8 over 1, okay? The answer is going to be positive. Let's cross cancel. And it'll be negative 2. Actually, it'll be positive 2 because those negative times negative is positive. So I'll get positive 2 over 1. That's it. So that is plus 2. So that was just the distributing. Now we can combine like terms. So I have some x's here. I have 15 halves x minus 1/2 x. All right? So if I do 15 halves minus 1/2, again, I'll do some fractions down here. Let me erase this work here. 15 halves minus 1/2, that's 14 halves, right? 15 minus 1, 14 halves, which is the same as 7. So when I combine like terms, I'll end up with 7x. I'm just adding together those two coefficients of x. And now when I say negative 9 plus 2, that's minus 7. And that's our final answer, 7x minus 7. And that concludes this video. I hope you've learned something about distributive property and see that you can combine what we learned in the last lesson with the distributive property that we just learned in this lesson. So please complete the Your Turn section on your note sheet.